I can showcase it along with just other little stuff. I gotta do the rest of my movie posters that I want to do. It's a little disappointing that they're not going to be like in the backdrop, but I already decided I wanted to do some of those like alien themed layered sculptures in this area.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put like my xenomorph up there and my predator, and I'll probably find a couple other things to add to it, so I at least have four. But the movie poster is just going to go like off to my left. Just going to kind of cover. I got a blank piece of wall that's kind of it's small for any other of my artwork stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'll just make a bunch of these, make them all about the same size because they're all based on movie posters. And I'll just hang those all up over there. The only drawback, and I think I mentioned this when I showed off the Indiana Jones one,
Mm-hmm.
is when he makes these, he has this habit. He makes this edge, the white on there, that border.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a little bit of a ridge on it, but that is much cut down from where it was. Like his original design, he always has a really thick border on that. Where usually you put a huge in a slicer and it tops out at maybe layer 29 or something.
Yeah,
A lot of his go up to like 37 or 39, but it's all that border, and I didn't want all that extra height on the border. So
that is tall. Yeah.
every time I make them, I just do a planner cut, and I just kind of play with it until I see that my cut's not going to cut off any of the design, and then I'll maybe give it like a notch or two, so it's like a couple of layers raised above the top of the print for a border, and it's like, all right, that's all the border I want. I don't want this big thick thing on there. I think he might do that because I've seen that he has like a little desk holder. I think it's maybe because he finds with the thicker border, it just sits in that holder a little bit better. It's more stable because it's not as rocked back as a lot of them. It's kind of like a little bit more forward. So maybe that gives it some more stability on that thing.
That makes sense.
But I just figured, I was like, I don't want this big thick rim on it, man. I cut it off. I'm not gonna throw all that on there. But I might have to find a way to standardize that if I want these to all look mostly the same. Because so far, when I use the cut, it's hard for me to tell, what you can't figure out what layer you're on, or at least I haven't been able to correlate that.
Mm-hmm.
It'll tell you how many millimeters you're cutting off. So maybe I just need to do some math to try and figure that out so that they can all be exactly the same. But if they're not, it's not that big a deal. They're not going to go inside of anything else. But I'll just keep them looking more uniform.
So, out of curiosity, have you um, checked out any of the new listings that I put in my Etsy shop this week?
I don't think I did. I saw the book nooks and stuff in there.
Well, I added a couple new book nooks. Okay, including one with ultramarines, which for some reason I feel like you would be interested in. Um, the I don't know where it's from, but I mean, it has kind of a Doom guy look to it, but I know it's not the Doom guy, and kind of a Gears of War thing, but I don't think it's a Gears of War thing.
I don't know. I think he might be Warhammer 40K guy.
That's what I was kind of leaning into, but I wasn't sure. And one of my students was super excited when he saw the David and Lucy from Cyberpunk Edge Runner.
Oh yeah.
Um, like, uh, I guess it's the only um manga series that he ever got into, and they've only had one season. So I'm kind of surprised anyone even made something featuring those characters because it's not like they've had some long term, uh, influence on the genre or anything.
Yeah.
I'm
I think
glad
it
to.
helped that it was based on Cyberpunk, and then by the time the Cyberpunk game stopped getting a bunch of hate, and people were more turned on to it, and then the Edge Runner series came out, and that helped to give it some good press. And yeah, because I see a lot of references to it and a lot of artwork and stuff. It's just I've never been into any kind of anime or manga.
No, neither have I.
I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is the closest that I will get. It's Final Fantasy VII to anything anime. And I was actually going to print something, had I not had delays, I might have gotten something out, but I wanted to print some Final Fantasy VII stuff. I just don't know what yet. Because my tiny printer definitely, well, I could probably do a scale model of a Buster Sword or something, but it would be very small. Might have to do something in like 2 pieces or 3 pieces. But if you get anywhere close to like life size on that, then it's going to be dozens of pieces on my little printer guy.
Right.
Because it's not just long; it's also really wide. So far, I've only done one model in like 4 pieces. The most to cut anything into to then reassemble. I'm not sure I want to tackle 3 dimensional space of like having pieces that fit widthwise with something and then sandwich between another thing and then have to glue them all together like lengthwise.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a little much. It would also probably take me like a solid 3 weeks to just print the pieces out,
Yeah.
if I'm using like a dozen plates or more and they're all taking 5-6 hours at least. It'd be a bit of a job.
Just a little bit. A little bit. Let's see. So I don't know. I think we accomplished what our goal was for this week. In that, we wanted to focus in on the tools, and we definitely covered that. Um, and because of various other things, and not being able to produce a bunch of prints or stories about failures this week, in general, I don't know that I have a whole lot more to add to this week's podcast. Um, we did make it an hour, which
Yeah.
surprising.
Yeah, an hour on the tools one is good. The only other thing I saw kind of noteworthy in the news recently
Okay.
was Bamboo Labs. I forgot the name, but they are making. If I can find it real quick, they're little electronic kits because you know how they have their Maker Lab stuff.
Yeah.
Cyber Brick, that's what it's called. Have you seen anything about that?
Cyberbrick. No, let me see.
So it is from Bamboo Lab, but it is a Kickstarter campaign they have right now. So you have to pledge for it on Kickstarter. But what they're doing is sort of it's like the Lego robotics, where they're going
Oh,
to be,
yeah,
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 like
yeah, yeah.
modular control units and motors that you can swap between 3D printed models. And apparently you can also program them. They're going to have 2 levels of programming unlocked for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to, you can just take them out of the box and they're pre-programmed to work. And then if you want to do something a little more specialized with it, they're going to have what looks like a phone app and a computer app that you can go in, and it's sort of like programming for dummies almost, where it'll have a GUI interface that you can select like, well, I want this to do this when I push this command or whatever. So it's very basic programming. But then if you want to, there is a level 2 programming. They say that it's going to be completely gives you access to the source. So if you know it's like MicroPython is the language they're going to be using, and you could just code it in yourself if you want. And they have an AI tool that can help you write code and stuff like that. So it sounds like if you really want to dive into it, you can get super granular. But I just like the idea of having like a little control board so you don't have to try and find this stuff on Amazon, right? Like if you wanted to make a motorized backhoe or something, like you just have like a module and it snaps into a standardized like plan, you know, it's all going to be the same
Right.
of where it fits into the model. And you don't have to try and wire it up to different controllers. It's all in one little like pre-soldered PCB basically. So that could be kind of cool. It might be. I mean, I think we'll have to wait and see until it's actually shipped something and people can do some reviews on it. But if you
Mhm.
get a lot of people making models for that, they could come up with some really cool stuff.
I noticed they have Oh, I don't have any prints to show this week because of the rearranging of my equipment.
Okay.
So it, it is what it is. My printers have been silent most of the week. In fact, they're not even printing anything right now because I just haven't turned them back on. What
Takes
about
a lot
you?
to rearrange stuff.
Do you,
I had quite a few.
oh, good.
I actually went on a flat printing spree this week. Some of it was my wife. So she picked out these bookmarks, and she even bought tassels for them, which I thought was pretty cool. They have like a little circuit pattern guy, and she got
Oh,
like these tassels in bulk, which are
oh,
pretty cool. So she'll throw them on
okay. So you
each one.
made bookmarks. All right.
Mm-hmm. And I think she wanted to give a bunch of these away to, like our daughters and stuff. But some of them do have commercial licenses, but I think they're from like 4 different designers. I was like, I don't know if I want to pay 4 different licensing fees for these, but they all came out pretty good.
Well, I
They
mean,
definitely look like they're a
you
combination of like Hue Forge, um,
you can give
and
them
maybe
away
Spam
without
stuff.
actually having to pay that. It's just only if you're planning on making money.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the Etsy shop
Okay.
because these actually did print well. And this one's my favorite. It was like this was one picture
Oh.
of like a Japanese like temple thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just cut it into 3 pieces, and then so each bookmark was a little bit different, but they all turned out really good.
Yeah, I like it.
That was her stuff. And then I tried to print her one of these stacked wall art things. There's a mandala of a mountainscape. I had to cancel it twice. So it started doing this, where it's just having all these edges curling way up.
Oh yeah.
I canceled that one pretty early. The second time I let it go through, and it got pretty much done with the plate. It was doing the top pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and it started curling really bad on those edges. And you can see like how that one's just arced way up.
Yeah, that's
But it
really
wasn't
torqued.
doing that very much during the printing, because it's like, yeah, these like little guys here. It's like it had it most of the way down, and then they just started curling up. It's always on those harsh corners too. And I did try reorienting it. Like I printed a different orientation the second time. Whatever it is about that, it didn't like it. We gave up on that. And then she picked this Hue Forge to print. The very cool dragon.
Ooh. How very Smaug of you.
And then I found this guy who does movie posters. He did the first one, that Indiana Jones one I showed off a long time ago.
Okay.
But he has a bunch of. I have Army of Darkness now because I decided to make a little spot on my one of my walls. It's not in camera, but I'm gonna have a spot where I'm just gonna put a bunch of these like little movie posters that I print out.
Oh, I like that one.
The Alien one's really good.
Yeah, that printed out nice and clean. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then I have a Hunt for Red October that is currently printing, but with the amount of red in it, the Sunlu spool is giving me fits. So it is about 3 hours overdue right now from all
Nice.
of the constant attention. And then I did one more layered sculpture, and this guy I think turned out really good.
Oh.
He's the predator. Oh, okay, he's all shiny. Mm-hmm. And I did this one. This is that black and white dual color silk filament that my wife bought,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You mentioned that.
and then just matte black. Once I finally ran out all my gloss black, I went to the matte black for my regular blacks.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way it looks a lot.
Oh my god, I love matte filament in general. It's just it prints up so cleanly.
Yeah, I think as I run out of some of these colors that I'm getting close to the end of the spools, I might see if I can replace them directly with just matte finishes instead. Because especially, like, it really makes like the alien poster here. Like, I think if this was glossy black, it would look more plasticky.
Yeah.
Instead, it just looks dark,
Yeah,
just like a void.
with that darkness in the background, it really gives it makes the colors pop.
Mhm. Yeah, so I definitely am gonna stay on matte finish for all the black. Probably red and blue when those run out. But there's so many different kinds of blue too. I had a Terminator 2 one picked out, a Judgment Day poster,
Okay.
but it needs I was gonna sub out. He has one that's like an ice blue in there.
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna put my cyan in there and see how it looked. But he also uses the blue gray. Well, I ordered a spool of blue gray on Sunday night. Like after the podcast, I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy one. Buy a whole kilo of it. I'll use it for something. And I ordered it off Amazon. It was Overture, and it was supposed to be here Tuesday. And then Tuesday came, and they said, "Oh, it's delayed to Wednesday." On Wednesday, they told me it was delayed till Thursday. And then Thursday, they said, if it's not there tomorrow, you can cancel for a refund. I was like, oh, so you lost it too. You have no idea where it is. And sure enough, Friday comes around. I don't have it. So I just canceled it for the refund. And then it wasn't until I think Saturday that I was thinking about it. I was like, well, I still want it. I still want that filament. And I was juggling. I was like, do I go ahead and try and order again from Amazon and maybe they make it this time? Or do I just go directly to the website? But then I knew that was going to be several more days of shipping time.
Right.
I tried my luck at Amazon again. It's supposed to be here today by 10 p.m. So we will see if it gets here. But I was a little bummed because I had actually initially I had thought about doing the Predator in the blue gray on the
Yeah.
black background.
Mhm.
But I think that black and white silk just I really like how that looks. It's silvery, but it's dark. And it sort of has a metallic finish to it almost. So I think that came out pretty good. But I would have liked to print out that Terminator Judgment Day poster if I had the blue gray. There's a lot of blues in it. It's the shot of Arnold on the motorcycle from the side with the shotgun up. And he uses blue gray, blue, and that ice blue in it. So it's got a lot of shading into the blues. And I was like, I don't want to just sub silver in. I think it would kind of kill the mood of it a little bit.
I can see that.
Silver's kind of my go-to substitution for gray because I don't actually have gray filament. I just do the silver anytime I have something that calls for gray.
I have 3 different levels of gray.
I've thought about it. It's like it's another one of those things where I go, oh, do I really want to go just buy dark gray and light gray right now?
Well, I mean, you
And blue
remember
gray.
the Nintendo storage that I printed? And you kind of
Huh?
needed both. You needed a
Yeah.
light and a darker gray.
Yep.
But
Yeah, unless you wanted to go totally avant-garde with it and just pick different colors.
yeah, that's not me though. that, that doesn't describe me at all. But I just sent you a picture of the one thing I was able to print this week, and I tried printing with the Cheaty. I tried printing black PETG, this Stream Deck stacker, um, but it failed 3 times, and I went through the entire spool. So I then decided to get some Elegoo translucent red PETG Plus, which is supposed to be a tougher version of PETG. And I printed it, and at 78%, it failed. And then I changed the orientation of it, and I changed the where some of the supports were, and reprinted it, and that one finished, and it looks amazing. Like the color looks fantastic with the Stream Decks, but
Yeah, it was.
but the holes are probably 2 millimeters too small to actually house it properly. So the one on top, I had to press it in until like the side of it cracked. Okay.
Yeah.
And the
Get a little
bottom one,
careful.
I didn't even bother to push it in. I just laid it there so that it's sitting, but it's not like fully seated like the other one is. But I mean, it works great and it looks tremendous. Like the color, the translucent red just looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's a nice color. It's a good idea too. I've seen the ones, I guess for a very specific person this would work, but I see a lot of them. Actually, now that I think of it, I think they're probably made for people that have that monitor shelf on their desk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen
Because
those.
I've noticed there's a lot of them that are under the desk, and I always think like, well, I don't want. It's cool that it would be out of the way, but it's also so far out of the way, like on my desk. If I had it under the desk, kind of on the edge,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I would have to constantly be like looking at it to see like what I'm gonna do before I hit it,
Yeah,
because it would be tucked a little bit too far. But I think if you have a monitor shelf and you tuck it under So it's above your keyboard basically then, but it's just not sitting on the desk.
Well, for me, that would make it too far away. I'd have to reach all the way to the back of the desk. Um, and like Loyal Moses for his stream deck, because he stands at a desk when he's doing his stream. Um, so having he has them attached underneath the desk, and like if you're sitting at the desk, you'd be too close. But because he's standing at the desk, they're in kind of a convenient spot. You know, so I weighed that out. I thought about doing it, but then because I'm sitting here, it just felt like I'd be sitting on top of them and be incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think well, if I ever get a stream deck, I might just throw it underneath the my L-shaped piece to my right, and I can have them just sit over there. So that's just far enough away from me, I think, that I can see them out of the corner of my eye and just push them. But they
Well,
also wouldn't get in the way of my chair or my armrest.
the really nice thing is that I had also gotten the Stream Deck Plus, and I bought the accessory for it that has the extra USB hub on the back. So
Yeah.
what that allowed for was for me to get 1 foot cables for both of the Stream Decks and plug them directly into the Stream Deck Plus and run all three off one cable going into the computer, which has worked out pretty fantastic. Rather than have using up 3 ports for these 3 different devices.
Yeah, it's a good hack. I hadn't thought about that actually, because when I saw that USB hub accessory, the first thing I thought of was like, well, why would I need that? But it's just I don't have a whole lot of that stuff that really connects peripherally.
Mm-hmm.
My camera uses my only USB-C port on the back of my computer. But then most of the other stuff I have is USB, but I still have open ports. It's just that I don't have, I got my basics. I've got my keyboard, mouse, my mic, my headphones.
Well,
And then the headphones are analog. So
I was trying to figure out different ways for me to use less of the I/O on my motherboard because when I look at motherboards, I have to find motherboards that have tons of I/O because of all the USBs that I take up. But if I can find a couple of these, little hacks like this one, which allow for 3 devices to be plugged into one, was it? I think that one's a 20 gigabit per second port, so it works out well.
yeah, a lot of peripherals they don't need a ton of speed. You can stack them all up on one and it's not going to cause a problem. It's not like trying to daisy chain cameras together or something
Oh
to like
god,
use one hub. It's like
no,
Stream Decks aren't using any bandwidth. It's just the occasional pushes.
yeah, like I have the Sony camera I'm using through a Delgado what's it called Camlink.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
and it's okay. It's not amazing. There, I don't have as much control over the image that it creates as I would like.
Mhm.
But the because I have that, if I plug in one of the other cameras that I have, any of the Elgato cameras, they all require at least to be using USB 3.0 cable and to be plugged into a USB 3.0 port. If I plug it
Yep.
into a 3.2 generation 2 port, it won't work. If that makes sense.
Finicky. It sounds like.
Do what?
I said it just sounds like they're a little finicky.
Yeah, I mean, you would think if anything forward compatible would work, but it does not. It has to be exactly a 3.0 or it rejects it.
Oh no.
And I
Maybe
came
they have a.
I came this close this week. This close to purchasing 2 more 4 terabyte Samsung drives because the 4 terabyte Evo drive just came out, the 990 Evo. Um, and previously it only went up to 2 terabyte. But the 4 terabyte came out and was actually on sale for $10 less than the 2 terabyte one. So I almost bought 2 more to fill up my other 2 M.2 slots, but I talked myself out of it. Eventually, I'll get
Okay. One day, but today is not.
Today is
That's
not
okay.
that day.
I eyeballed AliExpress too long for my 5700 X3D. They're mostly sold out now. because they were down to 150, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll wait till they come down a little bit more, and I'll buy one.
Hmm.
And now they're back up to over 300 a piece.
Of course.
They must have sold out of the shipment, like the big stock that they had. So now they're just reselling basically what everyone else is selling. So they're back up super expensive. But I was like, I should have just pulled the trigger on that because I almost did it. We were thinking about maybe doing some stuff for my father-in-law's PC
Hmm.
because I did give him one of our old GPUs. We gave him a 1660 Super.
Right.
He was still running that 1050 Ti actually that's on my wall was his. And I was like, well, I got something a little bit better. So we just gave him that one. I don't remember exactly what generation his motherboard and stuff is, but it's pretty old. I think he's on like fifth or sixth gen. Might be a sixth gen, like i5. But I was thinking, well, if I got myself my X3D CPU, then I would just, you know, give him a steep discount on my 5600, and we could get him a platform upgrade really cheap. But then he wasn't comfortable with that.
Oh no.
He's like, no, I don't want to spend that much money or anything right now. And got other stuff he's working on. So we just did the GPU, and then I waited too long, and now I don't have a super cheap 5700 X3D. But back to 3D printing, I do have these tools. My commonly used tools. I rounded them all up from my living room.
Okay.
So for supports, to remove supports, my kind of go-to has been these guys. They're not super tiny, but they're small little needle nose pliers.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You have
They
to
work
have those.
really, yeah, they work really good. I have another pair that are curved on the tips.
I love the
You
curved
know, the
ones.
curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can kind of snake them in if
Hmm.
you need to. Yeah, just like that. And sometimes I'll have to use both of them to like stabilize something really fine with
Right.
one pair, and then leverage on the support with the other one.
I found that the
Those,
curved ones, if you grab and roll something, uh, it's a much more precise pull than you get with just the standard needle nose.
yeah, yeah. If you can get some leverage on it to set that curve on something, it's great.
Hmm.
And then also, well, I just repurpose these guys. I use these for doing little snips on
Oh
when I do cable management and stuff,
yeah.
so I can cut off zip ties super close.
I got a whole set of the flush cutters and the different types of needle nose pliers. They all came together. It was like 8 different ones, and I found that I only use this one specific flush cutter and those two those two style needle nose pliers. Everything else just kind of gets ignored.
Yeah, you get favorites for some reason. And this is my substitute tool for a deburring tool. But I've just been using this super cheap little box knife whenever I have to clean up the edges on something.
Mm.
Because I mean, it works. It's a razor, so it cuts in there nice. And I already had it for opening cardboard boxes up and stuff. But I really kind of feel like I should get a deburring tool since you can use those a lot more precisely.
Yeah.
And then I've got two chisels, but only one of them is a real chisel. I bust out this guy when I have some like really stubborn, like small supports,
Oh
like on the
wow.
back of that T800 skull. This
Mhm.
thing actually worked really good because I could get kind of like up under that like layer of supports and pry them off. And you can kind of use it for some other stuff too. It's not real sharp, so haven't sharpened it because I didn't want it to bite into any of the plastic. I was like, well, since it's dull, it gives me a little bit of protection. So I kind of use that in some places where I could have used a deburring tool as well. And then for really fine stuff that I have to dig out of little crevices, I use this super small uh, standard screwdriver
Okay.
for my precision kit because he gets in there and you could take out those. I have a lot of pieces that are about that wide or something, like detail pieces, or
Mhm.
maybe twice that wide. And this thing extends out. So if I need to like snake it up into something, I've got like a long reach.
Ooh, it's telescoping.
Yeah. It's also purple, which is cool.
Very purpley.
It's not as cool as an LTT precision driver, but
Oh
it's also
god.
much cheaper.
Much cheaper.
And those, well, besides my go-to superfine sanding sponge, it's sponge that's just surrounded by little sanding textures, and it's got this nice wedge shape to it, so you can get into corners and stuff with this.
Right.
It works fantastic. I've used it on so much stuff because PLA is not real difficult to sand. And then I can, if I need to put some pressure onto it, I feel like it squishes into crevices pretty good to get out like little bits of supports and stuff that might get stuck.
Right.
And that's pretty much everything that I use on. Yeah, for the most part, it's like 99%. Every now and then I might have to grab something like a second pair of pliers or slightly different flush cutter, but usually the ones that I put here are perfect for pretty much everything.
I can see that. All right, so let's see. I have a very large combination of tools that I use, but even more tools that I want to use, but I've been too lazy to use them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. All right, I showed you the pliers. Okay. Now I actually do have deburring tools. Okay.
Very good.
Let's see. Sharpen that up. Maybe not. Let me hold on a second. I want to go to my actual camera because I was looking at everything through my feed, and that is going way too slow for me to get caught up. All right, let's try this. There we go. Okay. So I actually have used this, and this works much better on warm PLA than cold PLA. Because once it cools off, it becomes much firmer and much harder to actually like drag this thing consistently. So there's that. I figured it'd be easier for me just to show the box for my airbrush rather than my airbrush itself. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Forgot about my airbrush because I hardly ever use it.
And I mean, I've used it, but I haven't used it as much as I should. I do a lot of hand painting still, but for like the larger areas, I'll break out the airbrush to coat like large spaces.
Yeah, I think for mine, I was primarily got it thinking I would use it for primer and stuff. I just want to prime a whole thing, just airbrush it.
I have to take the ears out so I can reach this. Let's see. Okay. So for sanding, I actually have not done anywhere near the level of sanding that I want to do because I hadn't set up a vacuum in my office to properly suck up all the sand. But I got this the rotary tool. Okay. And it has not only like the round rotary cutting heads on it, but also I found sanding tips that fit on this, like round sanding cylinders. Okay. So because the videos I've seen where people are sanding PLA versus PETG, they kept talking about how much easier it is to sand PETG than it is PLA because PLA is very, very rigid once it cools. So like getting those first couple layers can be really difficult. And it's easier like if you start to like wet sand than to dry sand. But at the same time, it's still more post processing than I've allowed myself to actually attempt to do. But I have it, so I can start doing it. Okay. Let's see what else.
Good idea. That would have really helped on my T800 head. I'd had that. I might have tried to clean it up a little bit better.
Okay, so I got this thing. Okay. Let's see. Can we get this focused in? Maybe. Maybe not. Move my block my face with it. There we go. Okay,
Dang.
so this is actually an electric screwdriver kit,
Oh, okay.
but it's like an every purpose electric screwdriver kit. It's not just for like the smallest stuff. Okay, it has actually enough working heads in it to be able to accomplish a lot of different tasks.
Yeah, it's got everything in there.
It has extensions, it has um, like attachable tweezers, even suction cups to hold things while you're, trying to
Very
manipulate
nice.
them. So
Yeah.
um, I wanted to get a comprehensive kit to be able to do everything without having to, oh, well, I'll use this for this and I'll use this for this. And then because I had been using this set of Allen wrenches, which was great, except some of them were hexagonal, some were octagonal, and I had to keep experimenting to find the ones that fit the best. And each one of them only had like 12 different sizes. Well, for each shape, I have over 20 different sizes in this kit. Okay, as
Okay.
far as like the hexagonal and octagonal Allen wrenches. Um, okay. I'm not sure why I got these brushes. I know they attach to my drill. So I don't know if I was just thinking about cleaning up, wispy dust with them, or I don't know. But I got them.
Got it. You can use it for something.
Something. Okay. I did get a sanding block with different layers or different levels of sanding. Okay, so it has 80 grit, 120, and 180 grit, but they sell obviously um, different sheets also. So this is I've had really bad experiences in the past of like grinding my knuckles a little bit when I sand. So I wanted to make sure I had a sanding block to protect my hands a little bit. Let's see, what is this thing? Oh, this was another rotary tool I had gotten before I found the Ryobi one. So I have two now, uh,
Nice. I have a mini dribble.
and I don't use either one currently, but I want to. Um,
Dremels are fun. Once you start using it, you'll probably use it quite a bit for stuff.
yeah, I mean, like I was super excited to use this one because number one, the rechargeable battery is like one of the highest rated rechargeable batteries that are available. Plus, they make like 30 other tools that will use this same battery the same way my drill and other tools use with the same lithium battery. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm starting to build up the collection of smaller tools that use those. Um, oh, that's what. Okay, I forgot what this was. I was staring at it like, what is this? Now I remember. Okay. So I got some metal machined uh, filing kits. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I actually have used these a little bit for sometimes you get those really stubborn corners where um, like you peel off a piece and then another piece peels off and then another piece, and it's just
Mhm.
easier if you can file it off so that you get a more even corner to it rather than have to break out like the sanding equipment or anything like that. Just file something down so it's nice and flat and even. So
Yep.
I did get that, and this has actually worked out rather well for a few different prints.
Yeah.
And then of
I
course
hadn't thought about a file with Rambling.
uh, I got my digital caliper.
There you go.
Okay, and I 3D printed a bunch of different storage solutions, but this one I thought was super cool. Don't know why I did it in tan, but this actually houses the caliper set,
Oh,
and
okay.
in these slots right here, I can take the three um, plier sets that I use the most and actually put them in there, and it all sits
Very
nice and
nice.
flat. Okay,
Yeah.
printed out super clean, uh, and it feels much sturdier than I would have anticipated. Like there's actually a pretty good weight to it, but it's nowhere near like I think it was only like 20% infill, so I was surprised how sturdy it actually feels. Um, I guess I shouldn't be at this point. There's a lot of stuff. I guess depending on the size and its weight distribution, just seemed to come out better.
You always throw an extra wall loop on it too, and that'll really rigid it up.
Um, yeah, I mean, other than the painting and the glue that I use for the painting, obviously for painting, but the glue that I use for the heat beds, I don't use regular glue. Okay, I use this liquid polymer uh, that was recommended from one of the channels. And anytime that I use that, especially if I'm using PETG, it holds on to the material perfectly until you want to take it off the bed, and then it releases super easy. And the funny thing is with like the PETG, if it prints like a raft or something that's just outside of where the glue is, it'll release perfectly where the glue was, and then the part of the raft that's touching the other part of the heat bed will actually not want to come off at all. And what it takes to remove that sometimes is just absolutely ridiculous. Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for me as far as what I do use and what I hope to use. Because I mean, at some point, I really want to get into more of the post processing, which is why I got the sanding tools that I have. But because I never set up any sort of evacuation method for material waste that comes off, I haven't really dove into that.
Mm.
I keep looking for some kind of a harness for my vacuum head so that I can just sit it on the desk and use that right in front of it so that it'll suck up all the dust and everything. And I've seen some people that sell it, but I don't want to buy it. I want to print it. So
Yeah, you can
um,
get the
I
plans
just
print.
haven't found the right ones yet.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, I
Just have
mean,
to use a lot of that kind of stuff. It was built into the tool, the vacuum suction things. Kind of mandatory if you're using fiberglass processing stuff indoors for any workplace. They all have the vacuum heads on them.
yeah, the and I don't want to drill holes into my new desk, so I'm gonna do the post processing on my old desk, which is behind me now, because I've got a lot of holes in there. So worst case scenario, I'll just make one of those holes larger and run the head through there so it'll sit and just have the vacuum underneath. But I was thinking about getting a wall mountable shop vac that actually has 24 feet of coiling hose, where the hose collapses down to like 9 feet when it's not stretched out. You can actually
Yeah.
pop it so that it like continuously expands until it gets up to 23 feet, which would allow me to put it anywhere in the room I want and not actually have to have it like position it over here and then move it over here, because the amount of like little things that pop off inside the printers, require me to take a vacuum over here, and then I have to take a vacuum over here, and then I got to take the vacuum
Yeah.
over here. So
Yeah, that's one thing that my enclosure has helped out a little bit with. Is just containing all of the little bits, purge and stuff that kind of fling themselves away from the rest of it. Of course, it's not as bad as the bigger printers. Some of these little guys, don't have as much, but I still have to pick it up from all around, scoop it back into my little bucket.
oh, speaking of big printers, okay, this week I had an opportunity um, to actually go to this automotive shop that uses laser cutting, multi-material cutting, and very large 3D printers to customize automobiles. And while I was walking around there, the I guess the guy who does a lot of their design a lot of their design work was having some issues trying to figure out how to fabricate some things that are specific to odd shapes that are in like door frames and things like that. So I actually sat with him and we did the research on uh, like commercial grade 3D scanners, which would allow for, rather than him using a multi material cutter to make uh, a piece to try and fit it on a door, and then arrange things according to the template that he created. You know, basically hours of work to then
Yeah.
figure out the exact measurements and positioning and stuff like that. To then put it into a CAD system, create it, then send it out to a slicer and actually print it. I was going through and we were looking at different industry scanners that are available. Uh, Even if you go on the low end with like the Creality ones, which range in price from like $900 to like $1,500, and that sounds like a lot of money, but you'll see it's not really a lot of money when it comes to these things. The $1,500 scanner that they offer is pretty amazing. Um, it used to be when you're using these 3D scanners that you had to, if it was a dark piece of material or even like hair or something, you'd have to spray it with this special dust that it evaporates eventually. But in order for it to read on the scanner to see where the details are, you'd have to spray it with this fine dust so that the scanner could go over it and read it. Well, this new scanner they've released does not require that. It does for flat surfaces kind of indicate that they want you to use some of those global magnetic targets for it to recognize the exact size of flat surfaces. But um, like in general, you can scan something and have it ready to slice in under 5 minutes.
That's pretty cool.
So, and that's the cheap one. Okay.
Yeah.
There's some commercial grade, the pro system, so to speak, that go as high as like $38,000. And some of the stuff that they can do is absolutely insane. Um, Not only that, if you're interested in buying one, they'll actually fly a rep out to you who will do a practical demonstration of how they work and teach you how to use the software.
Well, that's gold star service.
Oh, it better be.
Should be for the price. Yeah, you
Yeah,
need it.
it better be. But yeah, I mean, when I was looking at his issues, I'm like, to me, a quick solution for you to take a lot of your work out and save a lot of time so you can get more stuff done would be the scanner thing. And I walked him through it, and he's like, "Yeah, I was thinking about that, but I wasn't sure how it would work and this, that, and the other thing because he's a car guy. He's not necessarily, super tech savvy, although he does pretty good with some of the CAD software. I'm not going to lie. I've watched some of the, or I looked at some of the designs he came up with, and the dude is no slouch with CAD software. But if you don't have to go through all the hoops he was jumping through, um, and so the owner who works with my wife at the law office that she works at, he actually gave me an interesting proposal that I'm going to try and work on. I can't talk about it right now, but it could end up being very interesting. And now have a standing invitation that if I need something, I can go to their shop and print or cut using their super big equipment. So there may be something in the works at some point that I'm going to be demonstrating if I can actually figure out how to make that work. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm not making any promises, but
It'd be cool.
and as far as like the other project I was working on, I did not get a chance to print any additional parts for it this week. So maybe I might have it for 2 weeks from now, when we have our next podcast. Not only that, I mean, I'm hoping that not only would I have it printed, but I'd actually have time to paint it, so I'd be able to show the finished version of it during our next podcast, which would be great.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm super
Yeah,
excited.
I think with us taking a week off, I think I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to paint a model.
Oh,
Print out something, and I'm gonna paint it so it'll be done. I can showcase it along with just other little stuff. I gotta do the rest of my my movie posters that I want to do. It's a little disappointing that they're not going to be like in the backdrop, but I already decided I wanted to do some of those like alien themed layered sculptures in this area.
Hmm.
I'll put like my xenomorph up there and my predator, and I'll probably find a couple other things to add to it, so I at least have four. But the movie poster is just going to go like off to my left. Just going to kind of cover. I got a blank piece of wall that's kind of it's small for any other of my artwork stuff.
Hmm.
I was like, I'll just make a bunch of these, make them all about the same size because they're all based on movie posters. And I'll just hang those all up over there. The only drawback, and I think I mentioned this when I showed off the Indiana Jones one,
Hmm.
is when he makes these, he has this habit. He makes this edge, the white on there, that border.
Hmm.
It's got a little bit of a ridge on it, but that is much cut down from where it was. Like his original design, he always has a really thick border on that. Where usually you put a hue forge in a slicer and it tops out at maybe layer 29 or something.
Yeah,
A lot of his go up to like 37 or 39, but it's all that border. And I didn't want all that extra height on the border. So
that is tall. Yeah.
every time I make them, I just do a planer cut and I just kind of play with it until I see that my cut's not going to cut off any of the design. And then I'll maybe give it like a notch or two. So it's like a couple of layers raised above the top of the print for a border. And it's like, all right, that's all the border I want. I don't want this big, thick thing on there. I think he might do that because I've seen that he has like a little desk holder. I think it's maybe because he finds with the thicker border, it just sits in that holder a little bit better. It's more stable because it's not as rocked back as a lot of them. It's kind of like a little bit more forward. So maybe that gives it some more stability on that thing.
That makes sense.
But I just figured I was like, I don't want this big thick rim on it, man. I cut it off. I'm not gonna throw all that on there. But I might have to find a way to standardize that if I want these to all look mostly the same. Because so far, with when I use the cut, it's hard for me to tell, what you can't figure out what layer you're on, or at least I haven't been able to correlate that.
Hmm.
It'll tell you how many millimeters you're cutting off. So maybe I just need to do some math, try and figure that out so that they can all be exactly the same. But if they're not, it's not that big a deal. They're not going to go inside of anything else. But I'll just keep them looking more uniform.
So, out of curiosity, have you um, checked out any of the new listings that I put in my Etsy shop this week?
I don't think I did. I saw the book nooks and stuff in there.
Well, I added a couple new book nooks. Okay, including one with Ultramarines, which I'm for some reason I feel like you would be interested in. Um, the I don't know where it's from, but I mean, it has kind of a Doom guy look to it, but I know it's not the Doom guy, and kind of a Gears of War thing, but I don't think it's a Gears of War thing.
I don't know. I think he might be Warhammer 40K guy.
That's what I was kind of leaning into, but I wasn't sure. And one of my students was super excited when he saw the David and Lucy from Cyberpunk Edge Runner.
Oh yeah.
Um, like, uh, I guess it's the only um manga series that he ever got into, and they've only had one season. So I'm kind of surprised anyone even made something featuring those characters because it's not like they've had some long term, uh, influence on the genre or anything.
Yeah.
I'm
I think
glad
it
to.
helped that it was based on Cyberpunk, and then by the time the Cyberpunk game stopped getting a bunch of hate, and people were more turned on to it, and then the Edge Runner series came out, and that helped to give it some good press. And yeah, because I see a lot of references to it and a lot of artwork and stuff. It's just I've never been into any kind of anime or manga.
No, neither have I.
I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is the closest that I will get to Final Fantasy VII to anything anime. And I was actually going to print something Had I not had delays, I might have gotten something out. But I wanted to print some Final Fantasy VII stuff. I just don't know what yet. Because my tiny printer definitely, well, I could probably do a scale model of a Buster Sword or something, but it would be very small. Might have to do something in like 2 pieces or 3 pieces. But if you get anywhere close to like life size on that, then it's going to be dozens of pieces on my little printer guy.
Right.
Because it's not just long; it's also really wide. So far, I've only done one model in like 4 pieces. The most I've cut anything into to then reassemble. I'm not sure I want to tackle 3-dimensional space of like having pieces that fit widthwise with something and then sandwich between another thing and then I have to glue them all together like lengthwise.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a little much. It would also probably take me like a solid 3 weeks to just print the pieces out,
Yeah.
if I'm using like a dozen plates or more and they're all taking 5-6 hours at least. It'd be a bit of a job.
Just a little bit. A little bit. Let's see. So I don't know. I think we accomplished what our goal was for this week. In that, we wanted to focus in on the tools, and we definitely covered that. Um, and because of various other things, and not being able to produce a bunch of prints or stories about failures this week, in general, I don't know that I have a whole lot more to add to this week's podcast. Um, we did make it an hour, which
Yeah.
surprising.
Yeah, an hour on the tools one is good. The only other thing I saw kind of noteworthy in the news recently
Okay.
was Bamboo Labs. I forgot the name, but they are making. If I can find it real quick, they're little electronic kits because you know how they have their Maker Lab stuff.
Yeah.
Cyber Brick, that's what it's called. Have you seen anything about that?
Cyberbrick. No, let me see.
So it is from Bamboo Lab, but it is a Kickstarter campaign they have right now. So you have to pledge for it on Kickstarter. But what they're doing is sort of it's like the Lego robotics, where they're going
Oh,
to be,
yeah,
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 like
yeah, yeah.
modular control units and motors that you can swap between 3D printed models. And apparently you can also program them. They're going to have 2 levels of programming unlocked for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to, you can just take them out of the box and they're pre-programmed to work. And then if you want to do something a little more specialized with it, they're going to have what looks like a phone app and a computer app that you can go in, and it's sort of like programming for dummies almost, where it'll have a GUI interface that you can select like, well, I want this to do this when I push this command or whatever. So it's very basic programming. But then if you want to, there is a level 2 programming. They say that it's going to be completely gives you access to the source. So if it's like MicroPython is the language they're going to be using. And you could just code it in yourself if you want. And they have an AI tool that can help you write code and stuff like that. So it sounds like if you really want to dive into it, you can get super granular. But I just like the idea of having like a little control board so you don't have to try and find this stuff on Amazon, right? Like if you wanted to make a motorized backhoe or something, like you just have like a module and it snaps into a standardized like plan, you know, it's all going to be the same
Right.
of where it fits into the model. And you don't have to try and wire it up to different controllers. It's all in one little like pre-soldered PCB basically. So that could be kind of cool. It might be. I mean, I think we'll have to wait and see until it's actually shipped something and people can do some reviews on it. But if you
Mhm.
get a lot of people making models for that, they could come up with some really cool stuff.
I noticed they have what looks to be one of the carts from Mario Kart in the picture of it with a silhouette that is oddly Mario esque in its shape. Uh, and they have an 18 wheeler, which I'm assuming is supposed to look like Optimus Prime. Uh, and then they have something that looks like a Cybertruck. But actually, these little control boards might solve an issue that I was running into, um, because I was asked to try and design something, and um, looking at looking at what they have on them, this might actually work for something I was looking at.
Hmm. Yeah, because it looks like they've got. I mean, obviously they put some work into it beforehand, so everything they've got pictures of is a working model that was designed by someone. But then they're going to have, I'm sure you can just you'll probably after the Kickstarter is done, be able to download the plans or something or the specs for like if you want your model to contain one of these things, like what spacing do you need to recess it and stuff like that. But yeah, they've got a lot of stuff that's already kind of made,
Mm-hmm.
and then it'll be more coming essentially. So that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, because I saw him like on one of the little preview videos, somebody driving around a little forklift, and they could kind
That's
of
funny.
cruise around and pick up something with it. So it's either two separate motors or maybe it's one motor, but it has like a shaft changer or something because it could drive independently and then also move its little forks up and down independently.
Well, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I just wonder how much like because right now I guess with the Kickstarter, it's like a kit that you essentially are buying.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious to see when it's fully launched. Are they going to stay as kits, or are you going to be able to kind of piecemeal this stuff together? Because I haven't really seen much. I mean, obviously it's still in Kickstarter thing, but it's like they have a really basic looking controller that I assume is also it looks 3D printed as well.
Yeah, it
There
did.
might be
Yeah.
designs for that. That'd be kind of cool. I was never privileged enough as a kid to have the Lego robotics things, so I never got to use them. But it was like that's exactly what came to mind. I was looking at. I was like, that is really cool. And they're also at like almost $340,000 on their Kickstarter right now, and their goal was 10 grand. So
Yeah, I never understood how that works. Where their goal is so low, and they make so much more than that.
I think part of it, I think, is marketing to try and drive interest in it. But I think part of it too is, especially for something like that, if they can get $10,000 worth of pre-order, essentially, they know that there's some demand for it. So it's like their tester to be like, do enough people want this for us to make it? Because if they just barely hit their goal, maybe they just make enough stock to satisfy the Kickstarter, like the pre-orders, and then a little bit over. But if you end up like this, where you're at like 338,000 or something, then you can go, oh, we need to make a lot of this. Like these are going to be pretty popular.
Well, I think everybody wants to try and come up with their own thing that could be mass produced. Uh, at least
Oh yeah,
something
that
to get that whole process started.
yeah, because 3D printed toys are pretty popular, but this takes it to that level of now you can make little 3D printed RC toys. So if you design your own, you could probably make a lot of them.
Especially since it seems like the control boards are interchangeable between different prints.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you get one, you have one put together and you don't sell it or whatever, you can print a different design and just take your board out of the old one, throw it
Right.
into the new one.
That's what I was just thinking.
Like the expensive part is reusable. So you can print as many shells as you want. That'd be kind of cool. That's something I want to keep an eye on for sure and see how that fleshes out.
No, that was a good thing to talk about because I remember seeing it at the beginning of the week, but I did not pay a ton of attention to it.
Mhm. Yeah, I watched I think a couple short videos on it. Doesn't seem like they have a ton of information out there yet, which makes sense because initially I didn't know it was a Kickstarter. I thought it was like one of their new product lines coming out. I was like, well, usually they'd give you more details, but then I finally saw a Kickstarter link on one of them. I was like, oh, okay. So we're not 100% set yet on exactly how this all works out.
Well, I watched several videos this week on prints that people thought were, you know, uh, what was it? Like prints, truly useful, like 3D prints. And a lot of them were mainly storage solutions. It's so weird how people obsess over 3D printing storage solutions.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
I mean, between Gridfinity and Multiboard, just those two, I've probably seen like 1,000 things to go on them.
Yep.
And to make it even better, I saw someone who was blatantly ripping off the slat wall from what's it called? That Swedish company,
IKEA
IKEA. Yeah, because a
makes
lot of
sense.
people
Those are
have made the
useful.
accessories for the slat walls, but then the other day I saw someone actually having, have created the STL file for the print for the slat wall, which I thought was absolutely hysterical. It's
It's
just
like,
like
yeah, if you don't want to,
I
go get real slat wall, you can print your own.
yeah, yeah. It's like I've given up trying to find it. I'm just gonna print it. That's it.
Well, I have an IKEA, but it is like 65 miles to the south, so it's not exactly a short trip for me to actually go
Everything is
down there.
65 miles from you.
Not true. Some stuff's like 20 miles from me.
That's not true. 66 miles is not 65 miles away from me.
Right. Cheyenne's closer to me than Denver is, actually. That's how far north I am.
Cheyenne, Wyoming?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because Cheyenne is super close to their southern border. But I am, distance wise, it would take me far less time to get to Cheyenne from here than it would to go all the way to Denver. And traffic wise, too, because there's no traffic in Cheyenne.
I bet there are a bunch of decent sized roads that don't have a ton of traffic back and forth in your area.
There's a lot.
All right. Well, like I said, I think this is a good point to wrap things up on. That way, we're not trying to pad runtime with, you know, oh, I just thought of this. Oh, I just thought of that. So I want to be a little, with the time we have, I want the next one to be something that I'm really super prepared for and just have like a ton of stuff to go over. So the, at the very least, I want us both to be able to show projects that we've painted, uh, for that one. So that would be ideal. In fact, maybe that'll be the topic for the next one is, to show off some stuff that we've actually painted. So,
Sounds good to me.
all right.
Give me some extra time to do it since yeah, painting is never anything that I've considered myself even okay at. So it might take a couple of tries.
Well, I mean that might be the greatest thing about our hobby is that we can reprint our canvas over and over
Just
and
make
over
another
again.
one.
So
If I make it too thick with all my coats of primer and stuff, then I can be like, all right, I gotta start over.
all my lines are gone. No.
It looks so dumb. I sanded the whole detail off the nose,
What nose? It's supposed to be Lord Voldemort. There's no nose. All right. So, Shiggles, thanks for hopping on. Thanks to anyone who checks out the podcast. Um, just remember that if you want to listen to the podcast and not actually watch it, it is available on Spotify, at Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. In my chat, I put the link to my Etsy channel. Shiggles, have you posted a link to your Etsy channel yet?
I have not. I'm still undecided on it.
Okay, so maybe at some point. And he did assure everyone that we will be discussing hopefully the finalization of the Patreon during the next stream once we're able to agree on some stuff. And let's see. That's pretty much it. So, oh, I was I was thinking of a sign off tagline to make the sign offs less awkward than the last couple ones have been.
Oh, nice.
So
We're gonna have a catchphrase.
yeah, something like that. So I'm thinking that at the end of every single podcast, one of us would say, um, "If you're not 3D printing," and the other one would follow up with, "What the hell are you doing?" And that'll be the way we end.
That's a good one. I'm game for it.
All right, so this week I'll say the first part and you say the second part, and that's how we'll sign off. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, if you're not 3D printing,
What the hell are you doing?
have a good week, everybody.
See ya. All right. I'm all off.